In this 3-minute introduction, I'm going to answer 4 frequently asked questions about JavaScript. What is JavaScript? What can you do with it? Where does JavaScript code run? And what is the difference between JavaScript and ECMAScript? So let's start with the first question. What is JavaScript? JavaScript is one of the most popular and widely used programming languages in the world right now. It's growing faster than any other programming languages, and big companies like Netflix, Walmart, and PayPal build entire applications around JavaScript. And here's the average salary of a JavaScript developer in the United States. That is $72,000 a year. So it's a great opportunity to get a good job out of learning JavaScript. You can work as a front-end developer, or a back-end developer, or a full-stack developer who knows both the front-end and the back-end. Now the second question. What can you do with JavaScript? For a long time, JavaScript was only used in browsers to build interactive web pages. Some developers refer to JavaScript as a toy language, but those days are gone because of huge community support and investments by large companies like Facebook and Google. These days, you can build full-blown web or mobile apps, as well as real-time networking applications like chats and video streaming services, command line tools, or even games. Here's an example.
If you give me 20 seconds, I will guarantee that you sign 20 clients. How? Well, I'm going to help you use the exact...
The third question. Where does JavaScript code run? JavaScript was originally designed to run only in browsers. So every browser has what we call a JavaScript engine that can execute JavaScript code. For example, the JavaScript engines in Firefox and Chrome are SpiderMonkey and V8. In 2009, a very clever engineer called Ryan Dahl took the open source JavaScript engine in Chrome and embedded it inside a C++ program. He called that program Node. So Node is a C++ program that includes Google's V8 JavaScript engine. Now with this, we can run JavaScript code outside of a browser. So we can pass our JavaScript code to Node for execution. And this means with JavaScript, we can build the backend for our web and mobile applications. So in a nutshell, JavaScript code can be run inside of a browser or in Node. Browsers and Node provide a runtime environment for our JavaScript code. And finally, the last question. What is the difference between JavaScript and ECMAScript? Well, ECMAScript is just a specification. JavaScript is a programming language that conforms to this specification. So we have this organization called ECMA, which is responsible for defining standards. They take care of this ECMAScript specification. The first version of ECMAScript was released in 1997. Then, starting from 2015, ECMA has been working on annual releases of a new specification. So in 2015, they released ECMAScript 2015, which is also called ECMAScript version 6 or ES6 for short. This specification defined many new features for JavaScript. Alright, enough theory, let's see JavaScript in action. So every browser has a JavaScript engine, and we can easily write JavaScript code here without any additional tools. Of course, this is not how we build real-world applications, but this is just for a quick demo. So open up Chrome, right-click on an empty area, and go to Inspect. Now this opens up Chrome Developer Tools. Here, select the Console tab. This is our JavaScript console, and we can write any valid JavaScript code here. So type this console.log, put a single quote here, and then hello world. Another single quote to terminate, close the parenthesis, and add a semicolon at the end. Now, as you go through the course, you're going to understand exactly what all this means. For now, don't worry about it. So now press enter, and you can see the hello world message on the console. We can also write mathematical expressions here. For example, 2 plus 2, we get 4. Or we can do something like this. Alert, parenthesis, single quote, yo. Enter, and here's an alert. In the next lecture, I'm going to talk about setting up your development environment for writing JavaScript code. In order to write JavaScript code, you need a code editor. There are various code editors out there, including Visual Studio Code or VS Code, Sublime Text, Atom, and so on. Out of these, my favorite is Visual Studio Code that you can download from code.visualstudio.com. It's a very simple, lightweight, cross-platform, and powerful editor. So if you don't have Visual Studio Code on your machine, go ahead and download it. The other thing I want you to install is Node. You can download Node from node.js.org. Now, technically, you don't necessarily need Node to execute JavaScript, because as I explained before, you can execute JavaScript code inside of a browser or in Node. But it's good to have Node on your machine because we use that to install third-party libraries. And also, later in this section, I'm going to show you a preview of Node. So pause the video now and download Visual Studio Code as well as Node. Once you're done, come back, continue watching. All right, now I want you to create a new folder. Call that JS-Basics. The name doesn't really matter. We just want to have a folder for writing all the code in this course. Now, drag and drop this folder into Visual Studio Code. Okay, we've got this folder open. Let's add a new file here. Index.html. Now, you don't really need to know HTML in order to take this course, but if you want to be a front-end developer, you should know your HTML well. Now, in this file, I want you to type an exclamation mark and then press tab. This generates some basic HTML boilerplate. We don't really care about any of this code here. We're going to use this as a host for our JavaScript code. You're going to see that in the next lecture. So, save the changes. Now, open the extensions tab here. Here in this box, search for live server. So live server is a very lightweight web server that we're going to use to serve our web application. So install this, then you'll have to restart Visual Studio Code. When you're done, go to the Explorer tab, right-click index.html, and select Open with Live Server. This will open up Chrome or your default browser and point you to this address. That's where our web application is served from. Now currently we have an empty page. Now to make sure that everything is working properly, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Here in the body section, let's add an H1, press tab, and type hello world. Now save the changes, back in the browser. You can see this page is refreshed automatically, and we've got the hello world heading here. In the next lecture, you're going to write your first JavaScript code. All right, now we're ready to write our first JavaScript code. In order to write JavaScript code here, we need a script element. There are two places where we can add a script element. We can add that here in the head section or in the body section. The best practice is to put the script element at the end of the body section after all the existing elements. So Here after H1, I'm going to type script and press tab. This is our script element. Now, why do they say that as a best practice, we should put the script element here? Well, there are two reasons for that. One reason is that the browser parses this file from top to bottom. So if you put the script element here in the head section, it would have a lot of JavaScript code there. So your browser may get busy parsing and executing the JavaScript code, and it won't be able to render the content of the page. So this will create a bad user experience. Your user looks at your web page, it's white or blank, while your browser is busy parsing and executing your JavaScript code. So that's reason one. The second reason is that almost always the code that we have in between script elements needs to talk to the elements on this web page. For example, we may want to show or hide some elements. So by adding the code here at the end of the body section, we'll be confident that all these elements are rendered by the browser. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes you're using third-party code that has to be placed in the head section. But these are exceptions. As I told you before, as a best practice, you should add your JavaScript code at the end of the body section. Now here, we're going to write the same code that you wrote in the last lecture. Console.log hello world. But we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail. What we have here is a statement. A statement is a piece of code that expresses an action to be carried out. In this case, what we have and separate. How to run the same code in Node. So I'm assuming that you have installed Node on your machine. If not, head over to nodejs.org and download the latest version of Node. Now, so by adding the code here at the end of the body section, we'll be confident that all these elements are rendered by the browser. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes you're using third-party code that has to be placed in the head section. But these are exceptions. As I told you before, as a best practice, you should add your JavaScript code at the end of the body section. Now here, we're going to write the same code that you wrote in the last lecture. Console.log hello world. But we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail. What we have here is a statement. A statement is a piece of code that expresses an action to be carried out. In this case, we want to log a message on the console. All statements in JavaScript should be terminated by a semicolon. What we have here, in between single quotes, is called a string. A string is a sequence of characters. Now in JavaScript, we also have this notation. We can add 2 slashes, and this represents a comment. So here we can add some description to our code, and this description is ignored by the JavaScript engine. It's not executed. It's purely for documenting the code when you want to explain to other developers why you have written this code this way. You don't want to explain what the code does because that should be clear in the code itself. So here I don't want to write something like logging something on the console. That's so obvious in the code, right? Instead, we want to explain whys and hows. So for this demo, I'm just going to add a simple comment. This is my first JavaScript code. Now save the changes back in the browser. We need to bring the console back up. So right click somewhere and go to inspect, or alternatively, you can use a shortcut that is Alt Command and I on Mac or Alt Control I on Windows. That brings up the console tab. If the console tab is not immediately visible, make sure to select it here. And here you can see the hello world message. Now, while we can easily write JavaScript code in between the script element, in a real-world application, you have thousands or even million lines of code. We don't want to write all that code in line here. We want to extract and separate our JavaScript code from our HTML code. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of your house. In your bedroom, you have your bed and your clothes. You don't store your clothes in the kitchen. This is what we call separation of concerns. We have the same principle in programming. So we want to separate HTML, which is all about content, from JavaScript, which is all about behavior. How should your web page behave? What should happen when we hover our mouse over a given element? Maybe something should pop up, maybe something should be hidden. So we use JavaScript to implement behavior. So open up the Explorer window, add a new file, call it index.js. Now back in index.html, cut all this JavaScript code here, and then paste it in index.js. Now, in this simple application, we have a single file, a single JavaScript file. In a real-world application, we have hundreds or even thousands of JavaScript files. Later in the course, you will learn how to combine these files into a bundle and serve that bundle to the client. Now, save the changes back in index.html. Now that all our JavaScript code is in a separate file, we need to reference that file here. So let's add an attribute here, src, which is short for source, and set it to index.js. So this tells the browser that our JavaScript code is now in index.js. Save the changes back in the browser. You can still see the hello world message, and that confirms that our code is still working. In the next lecture, we're going to execute this code in Node. So in the last lecture, we executed this piece of JavaScript code inside of a browser. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to run the same code in Node. So I'm assuming that you have installed Node on your machine. If not, head over to nodejs.org and download the latest version of Node. Now, if you're on Windows, open up Command Prompt. If you're on Mac, open up Terminal and head over to the folder you created earlier. Now in this folder, we run Node and pass the name of our JavaScript file, that is index.js. We get the same message on the console. So you can see Node is a program that includes Google's V8 JavaScript engine. We can give it a piece of JavaScript code and it will execute that code for us, just like how we can execute some JavaScript code in a browser. So Node is a runtime environment for executing JavaScript code. Now let me show you a tip. Here in VS Code, we have an integrated terminal, so you don't have to explicitly open up a separate terminal window. So here on the top, under the View menu, look, we have integrated terminal. Note the shortcut here. That's the shortcut for Mac. On Windows, you're going to have a different shortcut. So select this, and here's our integrated terminal pointing to the same folder where we created our files. So you don't have to explicitly navigate to this folder. And here we can run node index.js as well. Now, in this course, we're not going to work with Node anymore because Node is a completely separate topic. In fact, I have a comprehensive course about Node with 14 hours of content. So once you finish this course, if you want to learn Node, you can always look at my Node course. Well, hello, it's Mosh here. Thank you for watching my JavaScript tutorial. I just wanted to quickly let you know that this tutorial is part of my complete JavaScript course where you can learn about all the essential concepts in JavaScript. The course is packed with lots of exercises and solutions, and by the end of watching the course, you will also receive a certificate of completion. In case you're interested, you can find the link in the video description, and if not, that's perfectly fine. Continue watching as the next section is coming up.
And we're back in third quarter planning. Adams is quarterbacking this project, and
Let's start this section by a discussion of variables, which are one of the most fundamental concepts in JavaScript and any other programming languages. In programming, we use a variable to store data temporarily in a computer's memory. So we store our data somewhere and give that memory location a name. And with this name, we can read the data at the given location in the future. Here's a metaphor. Think of the boxes you use to organize your stuff. You put your stuff in various boxes and put a label on each box. With this, you can easily find your stuff, right? A variable is like a box. What you put inside the box is the value that we assign to a variable, that's the data, and the label that we put on the box is the name of our variable. Now let's see this in code. So here in index.js, I'm going to declare a variable. Now previously, in the old days, before ES6, we used the var keyword.
This is the beginner's JavaScript course you are looking for. My name is Bo Carnes, and I'm with freecodecamp.org. In this full JavaScript course, you will learn everything you need to know to get started with JavaScript. This course is perfect for beginners or anyone that just wants a refresher on basic JavaScript syntax. This course actually goes along with the freecodecamp.org JavaScript curriculum. So if you want some live coding challenges to go along with every part of this course, you can check the link in the description to that curriculum. But this is a completely standalone video, so you don't need to go through freecodecamp.org, but it could be helpful. Also, after this course, you're going to want to complete some or build some JavaScript projects. So I have a link in the description to some project tutorials, but then after that, you're going to want to create some project on your own. That's how you really learn JavaScript. You have to create things without even going through the tutorial and just use a search engine to find the things that you don't know or need to learn. To go along with the free code camp curriculum, I have all the ES6 stuff in the second part of this course, and that's pretty much it. How exactly do you install JavaScript? Well, for the most part, you don't. Actually, all web browsers can run JavaScript. You could download a code HTML file because HTML files can be opened in web browsers, and I have these script tags. These are HTML tags, but within our script tags, and then here, .org, and if you go to code, just care about the JavaScript, and in this course we're not going to be doing anything with HTML and CSS. We just need the JavaScript and the JavaScript console. So if I do console.log and then do hello world, then we can see right in the console hello world. The final thing you could do would be use Scrimba. Most of the course I actually recorded using Scrimba.com. So if you want, you can use Scrimba.com to follow along. Once you log in, you just click the plus button, do JavaScript, playground, and then confirm, and it's going to open up a new JavaScript window. Now I can increase the font size here, and it already has console.log hello from JavaScript, and you can see in the console right here hello from JavaScript. Also, if you hit reload, it reloads everything, and you'll see that. And then we have the console here. You'll see that in this course is comments. Comments are lines of code that JavaScript will intentionally ignore. They don't do anything. They're just used to create notes.
Hey everybody, today I decided I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to get started working with JavaScript. Throughout this course, we'll be working on a few projects you could add to your portfolio, which include, but are not limited to, a digital clock, a stopwatch, a functioning calculator, a game of rock, paper, scissors, an image slider, and our final project will be a weather app that fetches data from an API. If that sounds good to you, I encourage you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, if you don't mind, please give this video a like, post a random comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to be a fellow bro. It doesn't cost you anything. Thank you. JavaScript is a programming language used to create dynamic and interactive web pages. JavaScript runs on a web browser such as Google Chrome, Safari, Edge, whatever you use to browse the internet basically. By using JavaScript, we can respond to user actions and transform user input whenever somebody interacts with our site. In this example, I have a calculator written with HTML. It's not very pretty, and it doesn't function. We have the framework that we need at least though. By applying CSS, we can add color and style to this calculator, but unfortunately it still doesn't function. By including JavaScript code, this calculator can perform actions, and is well useful. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started working with JavaScript. I would recommend knowing HTML and CSS before starting the series. I do have a full free course on my channel if you're interested in learning those, or if you need a refresher. If you don't know either, you could probably still get by watching this video. I'll walk you through both as we go along throughout the series. Now before we do begin, you will need a text editor. One text editor that I recommend is VS Code, which you can download from code.visualstudio.com. For a step-by-step instruction of how to install it, feel free to check out the HTML and CSS series. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. So what we'll need to do is create a new project folder. In VS Code, you can go to the left toolbar, go to Explore, we will open a folder. I'll place this folder on my desktop just for convenience. I will create a new folder, which I will name Website to contain my website files. Let's select this folder, and we are now within our website folder. We'll need 3 files, an HTML file, CSS file, and JavaScript file. We'll begin with the HTML file. We can close out of this welcome window. I will name my HTML file index.html. In a website, the index.html file is typically used as the homepage. We have our HTML file, next comes the CSS file. Mine will be named style.css. The CSS style sheet is in charge of the overall appearance of the web page. This can include fonts, colors, positioning, stuff like that. Then lastly, we have the JavaScript file, which I will name index.js. The JavaScript file is in charge of the interactivity of a web page. So altogether, we have structure, style, and actions. So rearrange these tabs however you like. I switch back and forth between the JavaScript and HTML file quite often, so I tend to put them right next to each other, but do whatever's most convenient for you. So to generate the necessary text to create a web page in your HTML file, in VS Code, you can type exclamation point, then hit tab. So here you can change the title of your web page if you want. I'll change my title to be my website. And that's all we'll need for now. Now we'll need to link the style sheet to the HTML file. Now we are going to create a link tag. We can link an external style sheet to our HTML file. Within the link tag, there is a relationship attribute, shortened to rel. The relationship will be style sheet. We are linking a style sheet. Then the next attribute we need is the href attribute. Where is the CSS file located? Well, it's right next to each other. We only need the file name. So we are linking the CSS style sheet. Now our CSS style sheet is linked to our HTML file. Now we need to link the JavaScript file to our HTML file. We can do that by adding a pair of script tags. We will set the source attribute to be the name of the JavaScript file, index.js. All right, everything should now be linked together. The last thing we'll need is the live server extension in VS Code. Go to extensions. We will search for live server. It should be this one. we are going to install this extension. So whenever we save any changes to our files, the web page should refresh automatically. So now let's test this. You can go to File, Save, or use the shortcut. I'm just going to save everything. I'm going to right-click on our HTML file, then open with Live Server. And here's our web page, but it currently doesn't have anything. Let me just minimize this. I will readjust this window. Throughout this course, I'll have VS Code alongside a web browser. With our HTML file, we can add elements, such as an H1 element. These are typically used as headers. I'm going to say hello, then save, and that should update automatically. Or you can press the refresh button, but since we have Live Server installed, we shouldn't need to. Then paragraphs are typically used for a paragraph of text. In VS Code, to generate a random paragraph of text, you can type lorem, then hit tab. Now we should have a random paragraph. I believe it's Latin. At least it looks like it. To change the style of our web page, we can go to our style sheet. To change the style of the body of our document, we will select body. I'll change the font family to something else. Font family. How about Verdana? There, we now have a different font. To increase the font size, you can set the font size property to be either in pixels or EM. Personally, I'm a fan of using EM. 2EM means 200%, where 3EM is 300%, but that's a little too big. Let's stick with 2EM. All right, and that is everything we need to get started. Oh, important note, you do want your script element at the bottom of the body of your document. Just in case there's an error with your JavaScript file, you do want all of the HTML elements to at least render first before running any JavaScript code. All right, so let's delete our H1 elements and our paragraph element. We no longer need them for now. Be sure to save everything. We'll work with some basic output. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. To output some text, you can type console.log, add a set of parentheses, then a semicolon at the end. Within the set of parentheses, to output some text, you can either use double quotes, single quotes, or backticks. Personally, I'm a fan of using these backticks. This is known as a template literal. They're helpful with inserting variables, which we will discuss in the next lesson. Using either double quotes or single quotes or backticks, we can output some text. Let's say the word hello. Be sure to save. I'm holding Control S on Windows. There's no apparent output. We have to go to DevTools. So right-click on your web page, go to Inspect, then Console. And here's our basic output. Hello. For an additional line of output, we can console.log again. Let's print a different message. I like pizza. Let's save. And here's my second line of text. I like pizza. And I'm just going to move these windows a little bit. That's better. Throughout much of the series, we will be working with this window. Again, you have to right-click on your web page, go to Inspect, then go to Console. Now within our web page, to create an alert box, you can type window.alert. Add a set of parentheses, semicolon to the end. We'll use a template literal. We'll need a set of backticks. This is an alert. This should create a pop-up window. This is an alert. Let's write another. Let's copy what we have, paste it. I like pizza. Let's save. This is an alert, okay? I like pizza. Not sure why we need to tell a user that, but we can. Now we have comments. To create a comment, you type 2 forward slashes. Comments aren't used for output. They're used as notes for yourself or for other developers. This is a comment. So when I run this program, then if we were to go to our DevTools, we don't see this comment at all. They're not displayed as output. They're either used for notes for yourself or for other people. For a multi-line comment, you can type a forward slash asterisk. Anything that comes after will be a comment. This is a comment. You can see that the text is green. That means it's a comment. Again, we should not be able to see these comments. They're hidden. I'm going to turn this JavaScript code into comments just for the next part, because these window alerts are kind of annoying, to be honest. All right, now what we're going to do is populate our web page with some text. Within our HTML file, I will create an H1 element. H1s are usually used for headers or titles. There will be no text content yet, but I will set an ID. I will give this H1 element a unique ID of my H1. Feel free to pick a different ID, something you'll remember. I will also create a paragraph element. I will set the ID to equal my P, meaning my paragraph. So remember, there is no text content currently. Using JavaScript, we will add some text content. First, we need to select these elements by their ID, my H1 and my P. Let's do that here. We will type document, meaning the document of our webpage, dot get element by ID. Do pay attention to the capitalization. What ID are we getting? Let's start with my H1. So copy the ID, paste it within the set of parentheses. Be sure you're including quotes as well. Follow this with dot text content. We will set this equal to, how about the word hello? Let me zoom out a little. Again, this can be backticks, single quotes, or double quotes. All right, let's type the word hello. Now when I save and refresh the page, that H1 element should display the word hello. Now this time, let's get our paragraph element with the ID of my P, my paragraph. Document.get element by ID. The ID that we're getting is my P. We'll change the text content equal to, what can we say? I like pizza. There we go. Hello, I like pizza. All right, everybody, so that's the basics of JavaScript. When working with basic output, you can use console.log, which we will be using a lot. To create an alert, you can use window.alert. To change the text content of an HTML element, you first have to select that element, then change the text content, then set it equal to some text of your choosing. All right, everybody, so that is the very basics of JavaScript, and in the next topic, we will cover variables.
Is your child scrolling on social media all day? Try a coding course, where kids learn to make their own apps.
All right, well, it's time that we discuss variables. Do you remember from middle school or elementary school when you learned algebra? You had to solve for what the value of x was. X was some representation of a value. Well, that's kind of what a variable is in programming. It's a container that stores a value. The variable behaves as if it were the value it contains. There's two steps to creating a variable: declaration and assignment. To use a variable, we have to first declare it. We'll use the let keyword, then a unique variable name, like x, then a semicolon. So what we've done is declaration. Each variable name needs to be unique. If I were to declare another variable named x, we would run into an error, a syntax error. Identifier x has already been declared, so your variable names need to be unique. I can declare two variables, x and y, and they both have different names. That is fine, but they can't have the same name. The next step to creating a variable is to assign it a value. Once you declare your variable, you don't need to declare it again. So I'm going to assign x to equal some number like 100. We can use this variable x, and it will behave as if it was the value 100. Let me demonstrate. So if I was to console.log x, well, then it's going to display 100. If I were to change this value to 123, well, x is now 123. You can do both declaration and assignment together. That would look something like this. Let x equal 123. This is both declaration and assignment. If you're creating a program and you know what your value should be, you can assign them a value right away. Sometimes you may want to accept some user input, so then you might do assignment later in 2 steps. It's really up to how you write your program. There's a few different data types in JavaScript. The first is number, like 123. Let's create a descriptive. It's going to display one variable named all some text of your choosing. All right, everybody, so that is the very basics of JavaScript, and in the next topic we will cover variables. Alright, well, it's time that we discuss variables. Do you remember from middle school or elementary school when you learned algebra? You had to solve for what the value of x was. X was some representation of a value. Well, that's kind of what a variable is in programming. It's a container that stores a value. The variable behaves as if it were the value it contains. There's 2 steps to creating a variable: declaration and assignment. To use a variable, we have to first declare it. We'll use the let keyword, then a unique variable name, like x, then a semicolon. So what we've done is declaration. Each variable name needs to be unique. If I were to declare another variable named x, we would run into an error, a syntax error. Identifier x has already been declared, so your variable names need to be unique. I can declare 2 variables, x and y, and they both have different names. That is fine, but they can't have the same name. The next step to creating a variable is to assign it a value. Once you declare your variable, you don't need to declare it again. So I'm going to assign x to equal some number like 100. We can use this variable x, and it will behave as if it was the value 100. Let me demonstrate. So if I was to console.log x, well, then it's going to display 100. If I were to change this value to 123, well, x is now 123. You can do both declaration and assignment together. That would look something like this. Let x equal 123. This is both declaration and assignment. If you're creating a program and you know what your value should be, you can assign them a value right away. Sometimes you may want to accept some user input, so then you might do assignment later in 2 steps. It's really up to how you write your program. There's a few different data types in JavaScript. The first is number, like 123. Let's create a descriptive name for our variable like age. We will store a user's age. According to my analytics on YouTube, the average age of my viewers is 25. So let's say that my age is 25. Then if I was to console.log my age variable, it would behave as if it were the number 25. Let's create a few more variables. Another example of a number could be price. Let price equal $10.99. Maybe it's $10.99 or some other unit of currency of your choosing. Then we will console.log price, $10.99. What about a GPA, a grade point average? My grade point average is a solid 2.1. It's not great, but C's get degrees. Console.log GPA, 2.1. Using a template literal, we can insert a variable using a placeholder. Within console.log, I will use backticks. Let's write a sentence. You are, then to insert a variable, use $, curly braces. Place your variable name within the curly braces. Then we can continue our sentence. You are variable age, years old. Let's create another sentence using console.log. The price is, $, curly braces, price. The price is $10.99. I'm going to insert a $sign before our price, and that looks better. Feel free to choose some other unit of currency. Okay, let's add a sentence to display our GPA. Console.log. Your GPA is, :space. We're inserting a variable. We need $, curly braces. We're displaying our GPA. Your GPA is 2.1. Now, if you need to display the data type of a variable, you can use console.log, then precede the variable with the type of keyword. What is the type of age? Age is a number type. Price is also a number type. Same thing with GPA. They're all numbers. Let's go over a different data type. Let's go over strings. A string is a series of characters. Let's say we have a user's first name. To create a string, you can either use double quotes or single quotes. Personally, I like double quotes. Then you can type in some characters like first name. Let's say my first name is Bro. Feel free to pick your own first name. I will display the type of my first name variable, and it says it's a string, a series of characters. Then I will display my name. Console.log, first name, and it is Bro, or whatever your first name is, whatever you put here. Let's include our variable within a template literal. Your name is, add a placeholder, first name. Your name is Bro. What are some other examples of a string? Maybe somebody's favorite food. Favorite food. My favorite food is pizza. Type in your favorite food. Console.log. You like, add our placeholder, favorite food. You like pizza. Maybe if I like something else like sushi, well, you like sushi. Okay, another example of a string could be an email. Let email equals, then type in your email. I'm just gonna make one up. bro@gmail.com. Console.log. Your email is email. Your email is bro@gmail.com. Let me make the G lowercase. Now, an important thing with strings is that strings can contain numbers. After bro, I'll add 1, 2, 3. So a string is a series of characters. They can include numbers, but we can't use these numbers for any sort of math. Strings have a different behavior from numbers. Numbers we can use in arithmetic expressions. Strings, not so much. All right, let's turn these lines into comments. Then I will discuss booleans. Okay, booleans are either true or false. Typically, they're used as flags in your program. Let online equal true. Booleans are either true or false. Is somebody online or are they offline? This is either true or false. I will display the type of my variable online. Console.log, type of online. So online is a boolean variable. Let's display our variable within a template literal. Type in whatever your first name is. Bro is online. Then I will insert a placeholder, add my boolean variable of online, Bro is online, that is true. If I were to change this to false, bro is online is false. Booleans are typically used as a sort of flag. So another example could be for sale. Is something for sale or not? Let's say that we are selling, I don't know, cars. Is this car for sale? I could set this to be true or false. Let's console.log. Is this car for sale? Then I will add my Boolean variable for sale. Is this car for sale? That is true. Another example, let's say that somebody is enrolled in school, like in college courses. We could say let is student. Is somebody a student? Are they enrolled? This can be true or false. Console.log enrolled, :space, is student. Is the student enrolled in classes? That is true. So those are Booleans. They're either true or false. Typically, we don't use them as direct output like you see here. We usually use them with if statements to check something. Like if somebody's online, do this. If not, do something else. Is a car for sale? If that's true, then display the car. If it's not, then hide it. We'll have more practice with Booleans when we reach if statements. All right, now what we're going to do is we will close out of DevTools. We'll display some variables within our web page. So let's delete everything we have. I'll create 3 variables. Let full name equals, type in your full name. Feel free to add a space between your first name and last name. Let age, type in your age. And let student equals, if you're a student, type true. If you're not in school, type false. I'm not in school anymore, so I will type false. We will go to our...
In the gutter, then I'm tipping my hat. Don't go big on me, you might get hit with this mat. I don't need no hoster, you get burned like toaster. I don't drink no liquor, but I'm smoking no mimosa. We been getting that Jewish money, everything is kosher. Buy myself a Venador and buy my bitch a roaster. Drive my Lambo to the stove, I'm a wave with my doze. I'm on Glenwood, not the Ave, nigga the road. Talking on a pillow, nigga, that shit for the hoe. I never snitch on my enemy or my bros. I'm so 21, dog, I'm so SG. I'm so 4L gang, I keep a Glock, not an XD. Hair so good, she not even white, I still call her Becky. Rich milk cost so much, I can press a button and see next week.
You know the come down, we really feeling soothing. The come up, got them all oozing. Took a one way to take it out of Houston. Took the metro and we was still booming.
I made the same mistakes, all that fucking over. Maybe who I am today, slime me back with the traits. You can't see me fast. I was in a school on C class. I tried to pray, but it ain't working. I'm still popping. Drink a purple, smoke a perk. I need to see about it. All the pain I'm popping minded like an antibiotic. I can't help it, I'm a zombie. I can't hear my heart.
30 on the glizzy, got my pants dizzy. Playing around with savage. You get burned like toaster. I don't drink no liquor, but I'm smoking no mimosa. We been getting that Jewish money, everything is kosher. Buy myself a Venador and buy my bitch a roaster. Drive my Lambo to the stove, I'm a wave with my doze. I'm on Glenwood, not the Ave, nigga the road. Talking on a pillow, nigga.
For HTML file, then add some HTML elements. I will add 3 paragraph elements. So that's 1, 2, 3. I will give my first paragraph an ID of P1. Then let's do the same with the other 2 paragraphs. Let's rename the second as P2, and the third as P3. So to change the text content of an HTML element, we're going to type document, meaning the document of our web page. Then we will get our element by its ID. Get element by ID. Then within a set of parentheses, within a set of quotes, we will select the ID that we need. Let's start with P1, then add dot text content to change the text content. Then we will set this equal to a variable or a template literal. Let's begin with a variable. So full name. Our P1 element should display your full name. Let's do this with P2. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. P2.textContent equals age. It says that I'm 25. And then P3. Let's display student. Or better yet, is student. Let's change that. Is student. False. I am not a student, but you might be though. That might be true. Then let's display our variables along with some text using a template literal. Let's copy our full name. Your name is, add a placeholder, place our variable name. Your name is brocode, or whatever your name is. Let's cut our age variable. You are variable age, years old. You are 25 years old. And then let's cut is student. Add a template literal. Let's say enrolled. Are you enrolled in school? Add a placeholder. Paste our variable. Enrolled. That's false. I'm not in school anymore. All right, everybody. So those are variables. It's a container that stores a value. The variable behaves as if it were the value it contains. There's a couple different basic data types. You have strings, which is a series of text, numbers, and booleans. There's more advanced data types, but we'll cover that later. And well, those are variables in JavaScript.
This game, you're not ready.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? So today I need to explain arithmetic operators, because, well, programming can sometimes involve a lot of math. Operands are values, variables, etc. In this equation, 11, x, and 5 are all operands. Operators, they can include, but are not limited to, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. In this equation, the addition sign would be the operator. So there's a few things you should know regarding arithmetic operators in
go get the stick. Hold up.
Hold up. Bitch, I like the ball. Like, hold up. Without no weezy ball. Hold up. Bitch, I spit your rent inside the mall. Hold up. She got a nigga, but he broke, she lost.
Hold up. At this private location.
And JavaScript. So let's begin. Let's pretend that in the scenario we are a teacher. We have a group of students. Let students equals what's a good class size? Maybe 30 students. Then I will console.log my students variable. And it should be 30. Let's say that a new student joins the class, and I need to change this variable. To increase students by 1, I can say students equals, this will reassign my variable, equals the current value of students plus 1. Now we have 31 students. Now for subtraction, that is the minus sign. To subtract a student, we can reassign our variable students equals students minus 1. Now we have 29. Then we have multiplication, which is represented by an asterisk. We will double the number of students we have. Students equals students, asterisk 2 to multiply by 2. We have 60 students. Division is a /. We will split our class of students into 2. Students divided by 2. We now have 15. Alright, then we have exponents. Exponents is represented by double asterisks. What is students to the power of 2? 900 students. That is a very large class. Maybe it's a lecture or something in a college. So students to the power of 3, that would be, students to the power of 3 would be 27,000. Double asterisks is the exponent operator. Here's another helpful one. It is the modulus operator. It gives you the remainder of any division. So let's say we are going to divide our class into 2. So modulus, which is represented as a % sign, 2. Well, 30 divides by 2 evenly, so the remainder is 0. If we had a class of 31 students, well, there's one remainder, 1 student. Students modulus 3 would divide my class of 31 students into 3. We would still have 1 student remaining. Since we're reassigning students, we would be replacing 31 students with the value of 1. If you're using the modulus operator, I would recommend creating a separate variable entirely. Let extra students equal our students modulus 3. We have 1 extra student. Just 1. Okay, that is the modulus operator. There is a shortcut for writing these expressions because it can be kind of tedious to write the variable name twice. So let's set students back to 30. I will console.log students. We'll use what is known as augmented assignment operators. To increase students by a number, if we're reassigning it, we can say students plus equals 1 or some other number. Students is now 31. If I were to change 1 to be 2, it's now 32 and 33. Let's do the same thing with subtraction. Students minus equals 1. We now have 29 students. Multiplication, students times equals 2. That would give us 60 students. Students divided by equals 2. We have 15 students. Alright, then exponents. Students to the power of equals 2. 900 students. Then modulus. Students modulus equals 2. We have no remaining students. 30 divides by 2 evenly. So another place where modulus could be helpful is if you're determining if a number is even or odd. 30 is an even number. Divided by 2, the remainder is 0. 31 is odd. The remainder is 1. There's also the increment and decrement operator. There's a couple different ways to add 1 to a variable, but you should be aware of all of them. To increase a variable by only 1, you can take the name of the variable, then add plus plus. Plus plus is the increment operator. 30 incremented by 1 is 31. Then there is the decrement operator, which is minus minus. 30 decremented by 1 is 29. Alright, then lastly, we're going to cover operator precedence. This is pretty important. Given a very complex equation such as this example, in which order do you solve each part of this equation? So with operator precedence, beginning with the left, working our way to the right, we would solve anything with parentheses, then exponents, multiplication and division, and modulo, otherwise known as modulus, then lastly addition and subtraction. Let's go through this step by step. Let's see what the result variable is. I will console.log result. So the result is 23. So if we were to walk through this step by step, let's solve anything with parentheses, starting from the left and then working our way to the right. There are no parentheses, we can skip this step. Next is exponents. There is one exponent here. So we would solve 4 to the power of 2, which is 16. Then we will solve multiplication and division and modulus. That's addition, we skip that. We have multiplication, 2 times 3 is 6. There is no more multiplication, division, or modulus. Then lastly, addition and subtraction. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 16 is our result of 23. Alright, I'll give you a few more exercises. How about this equation? The result is going to be 6. So there's no parentheses, no exponents. We do have a modulus operator here, so we solve that first. 12 modulus 5 gives us a remainder of 2. We have some division, we would solve that next. 8 divided by 2 is 4, then addition and subtraction. The result is 6. Alright, here's a challenge round. The result is going to be 0.0468. We solve anything with parentheses first. 2 plus 5, that is 7. Then exponents, 2 to the power of 7. I might need a calculator. 2 times 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 128. Then we have 6 divided by 128. Then we have 6 divided by 128, which is 0.046875. And that is our result. Alright everybody, so that is everything you need to know about arithmetic operators. You have operands, which are values and variables in arithmetic expression, and operators. There's also augmented assignment operators, which is a shortcut to writing these equations. If you're going to reassign a variable, then you have increment and decrement operators to increase a variable by 1 or decrease it by 1. Then with operator precedence, if you're solving a complex equation, you solve each part of the equation following this order. And well, that is everything you need to know regarding arithmetic operators in JavaScript. Yeah, what's going on people? So today I'm going to show you how we can accept some user input in JavaScript. Generally, there's 2 good ways of doing this. The easy way is to create a window prompt. The professional way is to create an HTML text box of some sort, and you'll likely need a button to submit the user input. Let's begin with the easy way. We'll create a window prompt. The first thing we should do is declare all of the variables we're going to use. Let's create a variable named username. We'll declare it, but not yet assign it. Then when we assign it, we can set username equal to, then to create a window prompt, we can type window.prompt, parentheses. Then within the parentheses, our window prompt can contain some text. Let's ask, what's your username? Okay, let's run this and see what happens. What's your username? I will type in my username, press OK.
Spend $1,000 just to sell mud. Park that motherfucker in the bill. I got that motherfucker on my hip.
We have this variable username. It will have a value, but we should do something with it. Let's console.log our username. Let's try that again. What's your username? I'll type in my username. Feel free to type in yours. Let's check our DevTools. And here's my username. So that's the easy way to accept user input. With this window prompt, you could assign declaration and assignment together if you want to. That would also work. Now we will accept user input the professional way. With this window prompt, you could assign declaration and assignment together if you want to. That would also work. Now we will accept user input the professional way by creating an HTML text box. We will navigate to our HTML file. Okay, let's create an h1 element that says welcome. We'll need a text box. We'll use a self-closing input tag. I will set the ID of this text box to be my text. I'll create a label for this text box too, because if we're a user, we don't know what we're supposed to type in here. I will create a label. The text within the label will be username. Then a submit button. The text will be submit. I'll put this on a new line. I'll add a break tag. Maybe 2. Make it look nice. For the ID of the button, I'll set the ID to be my submit. Let's see if this works. This is a little advanced. When we click on this button, we're going to execute a function, but we need to select this button. We will access the document of our web page, get element by ID. The ID that we're getting is the ID of the button, my submit. So within quotes, type the name of the ID. Follow this with dot on click equals. Here we'll write everything we're going to do after clicking the button. We need a function. Function parentheses curly braces. Everything between this set of curly braces is everything we'll do when we click on the button. So first we need a username variable outside of the function. When we click on the button, get the text from this text box. We will reassign our username, then set this equal to the text from the text box. We'll use document.getElement by ID. The ID that we're getting this time is my text. We need the value of the text box, so follow this with .value. Alright, then to test this, let's console.log the username. Alright, let's type in our username, press submit, then check DevTools. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's replace console.log. We'll change the text content of our h1 element. I will give this h1 element a unique ID. Let's say my h1. We need to select my h1 element. Document.getElement by ID. The ID was my h1. We are changing the text content equal to, let's use a template literal, hello, username. Alright, let's try this again. Type in your username, press submit, and that should change the h1 element. Hello, whatever your name is. Alright everybody, so those are 2 different ways to accept user input. To the ID, let's say my h1. We'll change the text content of our h1 element. I will give this h1 element a unique.
When your vision is crystal
Alright, let's type in our username, press submit.
Razor sharp.
Let's console.
The focused
Document.get.
mind is said to be like
We
a
click on
knife, but the scalpel is
my submit. Let's see if this works. Nice. For the ID of the button, I'll set the ID to be my submit.
Tic-tac-toe or tit for tat, nigga, this ain't that. He was talking gangster on them tracks till I got him whacked. Glizzy with the switch and nigga splat, ain't no ducking that. Y'all be smoking make-believe art, we be smoking facts. We be smoking gang after gang, cock it back and bang. 21 for well, that's what I claim. Let your nuts hang. We don't shoot at houses, we hit brains. Y'all little niggas lame. Fell in love with them chopper sounds, walk a flock of flame. Everybody running their car, 21. You ain't gonna make it that far, 21. Walk down with an AR, straight up. We keep shit in the street, on God. They gon' put it in the bar, on God. Y'all niggas talking on pillows. All my Glocks got dittos. Take your back like CeeLo, 21. Draco bite, mosquito, 21. Y'all niggas corny, Frito, pussy. Caltech, how to shoot Cheeto, pussy. Y'all be talking that rah-rah, pussy. You ain't finna rah-rah me though, pussy. He went against me, he gon' step on him, I put my feet on. I just made a op, do the running man, Keep a L fin in my color, man. Still ain't met a bitch that I cuff again. Still ain't met a bitch that I kiss. God. He was talking crazy, he got bleached straight. Savage keeper talking John Wick. Shoot him in the back like he Rick. Playing freeze tag, niggas it.
I've been counting paper all day. I'm getting blisters, roadkill. Every time I pop out in a new whip, in your wet niggas ain't running out with my new drip. Rose set, white set, platinum set, overkill. Cushy and the nigga ain't have nothing to do with it. Overdrill. When you in the feeling, you innocent while you over here. Body count, protocol, thotty count, losing count, Swiss account, large amount, overseas, can't pronounce. Silver syrup, in a fur, get my dog, walk him down.
let's see if this works. This is a little advanced. When we click on this button, we're going to execute a function, but we need to select this button. We will access the document of our web page, get element by ID. The ID that we're getting is the ID of the button, my submit. So within quotes, type the name of the ID. Follow this with dot on click equals. Here we'll write everything we're going to do after clicking the button. We need a function, parentheses, curly braces. Everything between this set of curly braces is everything we'll do when we click on the button. So first we need a username variable. All right, then to test this, let's comment.get element text box. Okay, let's replace console. Type in our username, press submit, then check. DevTools. I will give this h1 element by ID. The ID was my h1. We are changing the text content equal to, let's use a template literal, hello, username. All right, let's try this again. Type in your username, press submit, and that should change the h1 element. Hello, whatever your name is. All right, everybody, so those are two different ways to accept user input. You can use a window prompt, or you can use an HTML text box, and that is how to accept user input in JavaScript. All right, so yeah, type conversion. Type conversion is the process of changing the data type of a value to another data type. For example, we can convert strings to numbers, numbers to booleans, booleans to strings, numbers to strings.